I want to launch into a topic on fear-based parenting, especially around the decision of schooling. And I know we're not in session of school right now. If you're listening to this podcast fresh off the press, we're probably in summer. But as the school year was winding down, the Tennessee shooting happened this past year, and it just feels like these things are becoming more of the norm. And I want to address this because really gun control might not be the answer. Taking your kids out of school might not be the answer. But understanding that you don't have to parent from a place of fear is really the heart of the issue. And so I want to take a couple minutes and just encourage you and equip you because I am a parent too. I send my kids off to school every morning with a prayer just like you do. And so I want to address this issue because fear is not our friend, no matter how it masks itself. Sometimes fear can dress itself in a pretty little box. Sometimes fear can come to you and make you feel like you are doing the responsible thing. But fear is fear. And fear attracts fear. You can't really hide from it. You can't bubble yourself from it. In fact, not too long ago, somebody I knew, they were really riddled with fear. In fact, during COVID in 2020, they wouldn't leave their house. They wouldn't let anyone into their house or out of their house or see their baby or anything. Just fear was just everywhere in this person's life. And it was very interesting because I got a phone call one night, and the phone call went something like this: so-and-so got shot. And I thought, what in the world? How can they get shot? They don't even leave their house. And they said, no, they got shot in their home. And I was like, what? And this person was putting their child to bed, and all of a sudden, they hear what seems like a firework coming through their window, and they look down and see blood in their stomach. Well, thank the Lord, it missed any vital organs and it grazed this person's stomach, but they got shot in their bedroom. Now, the point of that story is that fear is a magnet, that if you're fearful, you're going to attract fear, you're going to attract those things into your life. And so understanding that makes you realize that you just trying to protect your child and keep them in a bubble isn't exactly the right answer. We can protect our children right out of the will and the plan of God. That when you understand as a parent, your job is to steward your children into their destiny and into God's plan and path and will for their lives. In fact, I just had a conversation the other day with one of my older kids, and I said, look, I don't really want you to do this, but I don't want my fear to hold you back from something that's your passion. And we can impose fear on our kids in a way that takes them out of the will of God for their life, that we're actually redirecting their path based on fear that is a driving force. Fear never leads. Fear always drives. It's that feeling of I have to control. I have to be in charge of this. And this really comes into play in society today, I feel like, with the school shootings and the school issues that are going on, the agendas that the world's trying to impose on our children in the school districts and in the school system. And so addressing it at the root of the problem, parent to parent, is let's get the fear out. Let's completely eliminate fear's hold on us in decision making for our children. As you're listening to the podcast today, I want you to know I am so thankful for you. I love ministering to people. And one of the things that I love to do is to travel out and meet new people at new churches, new conferences. So if you're looking for a conference speaker, if you're looking for someone to come and bless and minister to the women of your church, check out joiemiller.co and find out how I can come and be a part of this event. And I want to talk about this because fear isn't a new tactic of the enemy. Fear goes way back from the beginning of time, and even in the book of Daniel, we see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they were in the king's courts, and the king had built an idol, and he said, "Look, when the music starts playing, everybody needs to bow to this idol." And the music started and they didn't bow. And he's like, well, he sent his guards over. Maybe you didn't hear, but you have to bow when the music starts. And they didn't do it again. And so the king's like, put a little fear in them to make them bow to this idol. If you don't bow, I'm going to throw you into this furnace and I'm basically going to kill you. The music started, didn't bow. Their mentality was, if you go back and read Daniel chapter 3, actually, it says this. It says, we're not going to bow. We're not doing it. Your fear isn't going to intimidate us to bow to an idol that is not our God. And they go on to say, even if you throw us into that fire, God is going to be faithful. And so I love to use this scripture when addressing fear, especially as women and especially as parents, because the enemy likes to put that little hook in our minds. What if? What if? And the problem with this is there's no boundaries to it. It can start with, what if something bad happens at school? What if there's a school shooting? To what if you're at the mall? What if you're at church? What if? There's no boundary lines to it. The enemy doesn't operate within boundaries. And so once you open the gateway and you allow fear to drive you, now I'm not saying you shouldn't be wise. You should be wise. You should pray over every decision. You should start your day with prayer. Once you start your day with prayer, you can know that the word is true, that your steps are ordered by the Lord, that the Lord is watching over your path, that when you learn to listen to the Holy Spirit, you heed his voice when he tells you to do something or not to do something, when you feel peace or when you don't feel peace. So you're led by the Lord. But the second you let fear in and grip you, it will run havoc on your life. That in a world where we're trying to protect our children so much, we're taking the faith factor out of our parenting. That we're saying, look, I'm in better control here than you are, God. I'm going to keep them in a bubble and protect them and maybe keep them alive. And God's saying, look, that's great, but I have a destiny for them. I need you to let go of fear and I need you to allow me to watch over them. To shift that mentality from what if to even if. Even if they have to face adversity, God, I know that you're going to protect them. Even if something is on the other side of our day that I'm not looking forward to, I know that you're in control here. Understanding that God has called them to their generation for a reason, for such a time as this. And there is a grace upon them, that God's power is upon them, that God knew when they were going to be born and he created them for this time to overcome, that he's used everything in their lives up until this point to create in them for the purpose of God, for them to take out the giants in their land, to take out the things that want to come against them. And so when you have that mentality of not trying to protect them out of everything, you address fear in a different way. You know, fear is not your friend. Fear is not God trying to warn you of something. Even in my life, when God has tried to warn me of something, it was never through fear. It was always an inkling or a still small voice. It was never by a fear. God doesn't contradict his word. He'll never put a fear in you to lead you. And so I want you to remember that. I want you to remember that when you're dropping your children off at school in the morning. If you're driven by fear, if you're riddled with anxiety when you're releasing them to go in the morning, you need to step back and you need to say, God, I'm going to be led by one, and that is you. I'm not going to bow to the idol of fear. That when the world starts playing its music, school shootings and all these statistics, and yes, school shootings are horrible and tragic and so sad. But if you even dive into the statistics, they're much lower and the situations are much more unique than what the media will reveal to you. What are they trying to do? They're trying to put fear in your hearts to drive a hidden agenda. And so as parents, we need to understand this, and we need to say, look, I'm not going to let any area of fear drive me for decision making over my children. I'm going to be led by the peace of God. I'm going to know that God is working in their lives, creating them to be the people that they need to be, that there's going to be times in their lives that they face adversity, and that's okay because God in them is greater than that adversity. As you as a parent stepping back and saying, I'm choosing faith over fear, I'm going to put my faith in a God who I've dedicated my children to. I'm going to pray declarations over my children. I'm going to do my part to pray and commit them to God, but I'm not going to try to control them with fear, and I'm not going to let fear control me where it just completely paralyzes me as a parent. So as you're going through this summer, I want you to build yourself up in faith. I want you to step back and ask yourself, are there areas in my life that I'm controlled by fear? Am I parenting out of fear? Am I trying to keep my children in a bubble? Now, it's good to try to protect them and guard them and steward them in the way of God, but you can't protect them from absolutely everything. In fact, fear will actually be a magnet to them. It'll keep them from doing things that maybe God has called them to do because they're now fearful. Fear is not your friend. God's peace will guide you in all things. We're not going to parent from a place of fear, but we're going to be strong and courageous, and we're going to raise a generation of strong and courageous kids.